Hey, what's up? It's James. Just continuing on with some childhood stories. I was going to go a little bit over, and actually something in first grade again that I wanted to mention was my teacher, Mrs. Ledbetter, was like fantastic. Susan Ledbetter was her name. She like moved to Montana like a couple years after she taught us. Wanted to like shout out to her because she wrote happy birthday cards to like every single of her students until they were like 21 years old. So I just thought that was something I've never heard of any other teacher doing that. So I just wanted to like mention that she was a really like caring teacher, and like she had good relationships with like all the parents. And the funny thing was that for me was that was like in a big contrast to my first grade teacher in Singapore. And I actually learned the word strict because of that Singapore teacher. Because on the first day of school, my mom and I were like sitting outside my first grade classroom, and she was telling me like, uh, I just want to give you a little warning, James. Like, this teacher might be a little bit strict. And I asked her like what it meant, and then she told me like what, and then uh, it actually, it came true. This teacher, like, I don't know. I think she got mad at me a lot. I got in trouble. She was like fierce, never happy. So to come to America and have Mrs. Ledbetter as a first grade teacher was like super refreshing, and it was a really nice atmosphere. The reason why I had two is because they're on different. The American and Singapore is on different schedules. So when I like moved back here, I had to kind of like redo half of like the first grade. I also want to talk a little bit more about like summertime and like some of the things I did. I played a lot of like E-rated, T-rated games just because like my parents didn't allow me to have like mature rated games. So at my home, I had a PlayStation 2 and like a GameCube, and I'd play like Spyro and like Super Smash Brothers and stuff like that. And then of course Crash Bandicoot. So it was super like, but then like I would go to some of my friends' houses and we'd play like Grand Theft Auto and James Bond and stuff like that, and that was just like completely different. I don't know if I mentioned Alan. He's another friend I had when I was about 3 years old or so, and because he lived down the street, and I'd go to his house and we'd play Halo, Halo 1 on the Xbox. And like I almost felt like a bad boy like playing it because like my parents, they didn't want me to play like the first person shooter games. I also got really into the RTS games. That's the real time strategy, because my cousin in Singapore, my cousin Justin, he he was about 19 years old at the time. I was like 10 years old or something like that, and he showed me one of the games he was playing with his friends, which was Command and Conquer, where you have to kind of control an army and then compete against the other army, and you like start from scratch and have to build up your units and your buildings, and it's all like in real time, and you have to react to what your opponent's doing. So I mean, I absolutely fell in love with those kind of games, and I was always playing Command and Conquer, and I'd play a lot with my friend Rashab, and I mentioned him in the first or the previous journal. Is like someone I played tetherball a lot with. I went to his house a lot. Our parents were friends. About a few years into like our friendship is when I found Command and Conquer, and then I showed it to him, and then we would just like talk about it forever, and just talk about strategy, and then we'd try ways to play online with each other, or he'd come to my house, I'd go to his house, and then we'd play. We would just like sit like in the same chair and like try to beat. It was actually in my dad's like office at the time. He had this like a big chair, and that was where like I shared the computer, or I used the computer when he was at work. So then Rashad would come over, and then we would play like the Command and Conquer game. And then besides video games, and then like the occasional writing prompt I got from my mom to write during the summer to kind of improve my writing, we actually got Chinese students every summer, about four to six students at our home. My parents would host them, and that was all through my church, who brought in like 100 Chinese students every year during the summertime, and it was part of their like 1 month long tour of America. Maybe it was a little bit longer. but they would spend like 2 weeks in Southern California, and they take classes at my church like English, American history, religious beliefs, and like cooking and crafts and stuff like that. And then in the evening they would come home, they'd have dinner with the American family, and then in the weekends we'd take them out to go to like really cool places like maybe amusement parks or to like miniature golfing and stuff like that. Just kind of have fun with them and connect with them. And they really became part of our family, which was like really eye-opening for me to be able to really connect with these Chinese students that came to our house every single year, and kind of opened me up to, you know, cultural differences and having the ability to make friends with people who maybe didn't speak the same language, or, you know, just came from a completely different culture. And I made really good friends with some of them. And back then, before I guess smartphones or something, you know, they would have translators. So actually, we would at our house we'd have like 4 to 6 kids, right? And then usually it'd be split between boys and girls, and the boys would be in my room, and then we would actually sometimes stay up all night talking on the translator. So we'd like type messages back and forth. I type in English, he types in Chinese, and then we would just like joke around without like having to say a word. And I think it was just like a really some special moments during that time. And like I really connected to some of them. Like Harry is one guy I remember that, and this was when I was about 9 years old. And because I was younger than a lot of the students, I think they like kind of treated me like a little brother, and they kind of, to some extent, like looked after me or like played with me. I guess kept me very entertained, and I'd actually go to class with them during the daytime. I'd actually follow different groups to their different classes, and then I would get to know the other 100 Chinese students that was that was taking classes. And like I made a lot of good friends with people that didn't even they weren't even staying at our home, but they're a part of like the 100-person group. So all in all, it was like a really cool experience for me to get to know a different culture and make some friends outside of my own like circle at school. And one special friend I made was Vivian, so special shout out to you. I met her when I was about 12 years old. She was like 15. And I think during that time in early middle school years, I was like trying to figure out who I was. I didn't really understand myself, and that was kind of my mission at the time, was trying to find like some sort of identity, or of like why I always felt so different, why I always felt like no one understood me, I didn't understand myself. And she was one of the few people that I felt like connected with me in that way, especially during that time. For me, it was really cool to like be able to connect with someone from the other side of the world. And then we actually got to reconnect again about 7 years later, because we both went to the same college, University of Southern California. And then we actually got to meet up again after like so many years, and it was like just really cool that our friendship kind of continued on. Another person I had another good friendship with was one of the Chinese students that came over. She was like very artistic. She liked to sing. She liked to, at that time, Lady Gaga was like really popular, and she would like performed like a Lady Gaga routine at her school, and she made like these props made out of cards and stuff. She was like remaking one of her music videos like for a school performance. And I think meeting someone like that who was really into music and arts and stuff like that from China, kind of like that kind of opened my mind too. And it was really cool to connect with another artist during that time, where I didn't really have that many friends that were kind of artistic minded until like I later on in college, where I kind of lived in Los Angeles and met a lot of other creatives. So I think meeting someone that was kind of like minded to me, especially from a different country, was like also a really cool experience. And we would like listen to music together, and even when she went back to China, she would like send me artists, and like I found about like the artist Mika from her. I know I said a lot about all these Chinese students, but I mean it was really cool that I got to kind of make really good friends and become family with a lot of these students. And it was to the point where like when we separated, everyone was crying, and then like there were times where my mom and I would go surprise them at like an amusement park they were visiting. So this was like after they left our house, they would go on to visit Universal Studios with their tour group, and then we'd go and like surprise them or something, and they'd be like super happy, or we'd find them at a mall or a restaurant or something like that. So those are all just like really good memories of my childhood, and I just wanted to make sure I kind of put that in here because although it was a long time ago, I think it was an important part of every summer that I kind of looked forward to. Another thing I wanted to mention about the Chinese students, and it's like a little bit more embarrassing for me, but like they actually found me really attractive because I was mixed blood through like Chinese and Caucasian, and it was just a really unique experience for me because like at the end before they had to leave to go back to China, they would like line up to take pictures with me or like try to get my phone number or email, and I guess there wasn't really any other time other than that part of the year where like I felt like I guess I was in that kind of situation where like I was found to be really attractive or something, and it was like super obvious. It was a really unique experience for me that I obviously enjoyed, and I think that was a big confidence booster for me in teenage years to kind of have confidence in your image and to know that there's places in the world where you are found to be attractive or to be wanted. Okay, got that out of the way. Going to end this little journal entry a little bit with one of my good friends in elementary school, which was Rashab. I mentioned him like a couple times, but I just want to bring him up again just because like we hung out so many times, and then we actually did karate with each other. So like I started my white belt when I was about 7 years old. He started like a couple months before me or a year before me, and then we would go to karate together a lot. And I feel like I feel like he came into my house a lot. I went over to his house a lot. We went swimming. We played games. And then there's this really one funny time where we were listening to this to Green Day, this was during the time where I think their American Idiot album came out. That was like super popular on the charts and like one of the best selling albums of the time. And then because through the album there was another song called Boulevard of Broken Dreams, and that song Rashab and I both liked it, but he didn't know that there was actually like a curse word in it. The F word is in it, and he didn't notice it. And then I don't know, it was so funny because there was one time we were both listening to it, and I told him like, hey, like that word is in this song, and he was like, oh shoot, no way. And then I think it comes in the second verse or something, and it's like kind of hard to hear. And I was like, you gotta listen carefully, like. He says some bad word in this song, and we were just like all jittered up because like we were both listening to the song, and then we were both like kind of good kids. And then since I mentioned karate, I'll just go a little bit over that. Like I did karate from the time I was like 7 years old to like 14, where I went from white belt to black belt, and then I think went like white, orange, yellow, green, blue, red, black, and then there was like a white stripe in between those. And I had a really good time there. I think it really helped me kind of give me better reflexes, and it taught me one of the important things I learned there was actually how to fall down and roll, because throughout life you're going to fall down a lot, like literally. And I think being able to fall off a bike or just trip and then be able to like fall in a way that doesn't injure yourself turns out to be a lot more important than you would expect. Actually, like during the black belt test, they made us like roll around on the floor for like 30 minutes, and it like gets you really, really dizzy. And there's another guy named Alex Rigo, and then I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but he was a really good teacher. He was really good with kids. He was like in his younger 20s, and I just want to like make sure I mention him because like I really appreciated how like how supportive he was and how like dedicated he was to kind of teaching us. and he was always like really fun to be around. There was another teacher there that was a little more of a jokester, and I remember one time he actually came around and like pushed me by surprise from behind, just like shoved me, tried to get me on the floor, and basically he was trying to make me practice falling, like when you least expect it. And I actually performed. I actually performed well, but basically, when he pushes you down the floor, you would then have to kind of roll and then kind of get back up without, falling like flat on your face, basically. So that was like a fun little challenge. And then we do exercises where like someone would run up to you and then you'd have to kind of roll on your back and then like kick them over you. And then there are other times where we use these knives that were like tasers. They had like little tiny static shock on them, so they were like so they would hurt. They would hurt a little bit and kind of give more of a sense of danger when working with knives. There are other times where like I remember like all the teachers would kind of surround me and then try to like jump me basically, and then I'd have to try to escape or try to defend my way out of it. So it was really fun. It was definitely a really like interesting experience during those times, and I got to fight a lot with different people. So it's kind of a cool way to not only maybe get some internal aggression out, but do it in a controlled way and in a positive environment that is kind of like giving you confidence in yourself and also being able to learn how to defend yourself and knowing when the right time is to do it. Alright, so that's going to be the end for this journal entry. I'm going to continue on with another one probably right after this, but I just want to cut this one here. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.